There were Stoics in Greece that were abolitionists.
No, there weren't. There weren't any Stoics.
There actually was. Seneca.
Epic. No, he did not say slavery should be abolished. No.
Seneca.
Atheist was, for example, an early slave.
Seneca absolutely advocated for getting rid of slavery. Said it was an immoral institution.
He said it was immoral. He didn't say it should go away.
There was another.
Evil.
There was quite a few Stoics that agreed with him.
They agreed slavery was bad, but they didn't call for abolition. The first person that called for the abolition of slavery, Gregory of Nyssa.
That is wrong.
Christian defender Michael Jones has found himself on one of the biggest debate platforms for politics and worldview out there with Tim Pool. And in this clip, he finds himself in an aggressive discussion with an atheist about the history of Christianity when it comes to slavery and whether that means Christianity is bad for society. Should Christianity get credit for ending slavery in the West? We need to hear the setup conversation first, and then we're going to hear that big, aggressive back and forth between the Christian and the atheist. So I'll make most of my comments on the back end. Let's go to that now.
So we're talking about comparing the core values of a moral tradition to another one or a lack thereof.
What are the core values of Christianity? Because my reading of the Bible is that the core value of Christianity is that men are more equal than women. Men are higher status. Slavery is okay. Genocide's okay.
So on that note, I mean, that you said that's your reading. It's not important about what your reading is. It's about what's important is the effects that Christianity has actually created.
No, it's
and
not.
What it's actually brought about. Absolutely.
It's about what the Bible says. Christianity is based on the book.
And we're talking about...
And the book says slavery is okay. You can buy and sell slaves at your will.
Let me continue. It's about the actual effects. Most people throughout history are not going to agree with your interpretation. There's a reason the abolitionist movement came out through the Christian movement.
It did not.
It definitely did.
It was absolutely not. The Christians were burning crosses on people's yards even after abolition. The Christians were quoting the Bible to endorse slavery.
Are you going to let me finish now?
But go ahead.
Go ahead.
So, yes, people justified slavery in every culture. Something weird started happening in Europe and then through the American tradition is that people started saying, no, slavery should be abolished. When there are reasons, if you read John Coffey, if you read Robert Fogel, who is not a Christian, Ben Wright, the abolitionists were very much arguing from the Christian tradition that it should be abolished. Did Christians try to justify slavery? Absolutely. Everyone, everywhere tried to justify slavery. But surprisingly, as historians will note on this issue, over time, through the Christian tradition, they started saying, hey, there's certain things in the Bible which demand that we end slavery. So now, this is, again, what most historians will say, out of the Christian tradition, we see a strong abolitionist movement. These early abolitionists were citing biblical verses, biblical values for their reason to end slavery.
And so were the enslavers.
And John Brown, who was deeply motivated by Christianity, walked up to slavers and blasted them in the face without question, murdering tons of people. And the taking of Harper's Ferry, the most famous moment. People don't realize John Brown and his sons and his gang were going through Kansas and straight up murdering people without question because they said you are an affront to God. Mm-hmm. So we can talk about the abolitionists. Like, it's remarkable to me. You go to the casino down the street, and they've got $25 chips with John Brown, hailed as a hero, despite the fact that he was hanged for treason. And I'm like, look, man, I appreciate the abolitionist stuff, but I don't know that I'd ever get behind a guy who would walk up to a random person and blow his face off. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not the kind of world. But that was Christianity, right? Obviously, this country was like 99% Christian at the time. I mean, that meant that abolitionists and
obviously
they were all Christians.
Everyone,
nobody gets credit
for text.
it.
Yeah, no, you don't get credit for using the Bible to abolish it. In fact, Jefferson Davis, the president of the Confederacy, said, "Who gave them the right to decide that it's a sin? By what standard do they measure it? Not the Constitution. The Constitution recognizes the property in many forms, imposes obligations in its connection that in that recognition, not the Bible." It justifies it. And then he says later, it is not the cause of Christianity. It cannot be. For servitude is the only agency through which Christianity has reached the degraded race, the only means by which they have been civilized and elevated. And church fathers all throughout history said the same thing. Basil said it. Ambrose said it. There were dozens of church fathers and popes who all said that slavery was the means by which we're going to bring these heathen races to Christianity because Leviticus 25 says so.
But it's a moot point. Mm-hmm. Christians also abolished slavery. Nobody gets credit for it. So therefore, it's not of Christianity. It's it's moot.
Everyone justified slavery from their traditions in the ancient world. Why do we now think slavery is wrong today? Go back and read what the abolitionists were doing. There was something in Christianity that started. Did most people early on try to justify it? Absolutely. But the abolitionists were not arguing from Enlightenment ideas, secular ideas. I mean, one of the earliest anti-slavery tracts is called The Selling of Joseph for a reason. They were arguing from the Christian tradition. Okay, so there was something moving within Christianity that Tom Holland talks about that did eventually lead to this new change in our ethics and our understanding of slavery that did get abolished, that did lead to its abolishing it. So there was something within it that did lead. It didn't happen in Muslim countries. It didn't happen in the Far East. Even early enlightened thinkers like Voltaire and David Hume were trying to justify slavery. So, I mean, like everyone tried to justify slavery. The question we need to ask is what motivated the abolitionists? And you can again say, yeah, Christians did justify slavery. That doesn't challenge the fact what the abolitionists were using and arguing from.
We're coming up on a very tense and aggressive moment, and I don't want you to miss that. But so far what we've heard is that there were Christians who used the Bible to try and support slavery and Christians who used the Bible to try and abolish slavery. Tim Pool and Michael Jones have pointed out that since slavery was just all over the place throughout human history, it's not surprising. It's a sad history. And many have pointed out that Israelite slavery was a big ethical improvement over slavery as it existed at the time. And when it comes to the New Testament, just as Jesus said about divorce in the Old Testament, that Moses allowed them to have the kind of divorce they had for the hardness of their heart, but there was a trajectory going upward that Jesus didn't want divorce and marriage to remain as it was. He wanted marriage to be better. And in a similar way, it seems like when we read the New Testament, perhaps that in the Old Testament, God was meeting them at a particular place, but he wanted them on a trajectory up and out of slavery as it was toward perhaps abolition. Well, there's a lot more to say about that, but for now, let's get to that moment where things got pretty tense.
Right. But there have been multiple societies that abolished slavery many thousands of years prior to the U.S. There was a dynasty in China in the BC era that abolished slavery for a time period. There was a leader in India for a period of a couple hundred years where slavery was abolished. There were Stoics in Greece that were abolitionists.
No, there weren't. There weren't any Stoics.
There actually was. Seneca.
No, he did not say slavery should be abolished. No.
Seneca
Epictetus was, for example, an early slave.
Seneca absolutely advocated for getting rid of slavery, said it was an immoral institution. There
He said it was immoral. He didn't say it should go away. There was
quite a few Stoics that agreed with him.
They agreed slavery was bad, but they didn't call for abolition. The first person that called for the abolition of slavery, Gregory of Nyssa.
That is wrong.
No, Gregory of Nyssa is the first person.
He's the first Christian that talked about abolishing slavery, but he was outruled by the other church fathers.
Exactly.
The other church fathers disagreed with him.
No, he's the first person in history to call for the abolition.
So he certainly is not the first person in history. In fact, I already quoted you. There's I think the Wing dynasty in China, and then there's another dynasty in India that abolished it.
No,
way
I'm talking
before
about a universal abolition. That
was universally abolitioned.
I have a fact check. Seneca did not explicitly advocate for abolishing slavery. While he criticized the mistreatment of slaves and encouraged humane treatment, he accepted slavery as a social institution. The sources for this are Moral Letters to Lucilius, letter 47, and Seneca De Beneficiis, book 3, chapter 18. And then there is a book in 1994 discussing Rome's attitudes towards slavery called Bradley Keith's Slavery Society in Rome.
Would Seneca have been executed if he'd called for the abolition of it?
I don't think he would have been executed. It's just, Kyle Harper talks about this in his book. It's just, no one even questioned it. It's like trying to say, could we get rid of water?
Or money?
Yeah, they just knew that this was just something that could never go away.
Twice recently, Michael Jones has rolled out the data to demonstrate that Christianity is better for society than secularism. And that's true whether you think Christianity is true or not. And that means you need to be ready to talk to other people about this. And if this clip is all you see, then you're not going to get all of that great data and the full story. So you need to click the video that's on the screen right now so that you can go there and get that great information as Michael Jones debates with a scientist.